Thank you so much for keeping it on morning at NTV. Stephen Imbido on Fefeswe Chibuga. Sunday will be another public holiday. I'm so sorry for you who is a civil servant, because maybe you would want to have it fall on a Monday so that you can have more time with your family. This will be the Janan Luwum Day, and of course this is in celebration of his life and his service to this this nation. And here to talk to me about this, the importance of this day, and why you and me should know more about Janan Luwum and also be part of this, is none other than Reverend Canon Aaron Mwesije. He's the Director for Ethics and Religious Affairs in the Directorate of Ethics and Integrity Office of the President. Thank you so much for gracing our invitation. Good morning to you, Reverend Canon.
Good morning to you, my brother Ambide, and good morning to you all who are listening to this wonderful and historic program.
We are here to talk about a man, Janan Luwum. A man, many are celebrating the life and his contribution. But before we even talk about this man, why is it really important? Because now this year makes it a decade after President Museveni used his executive powers to declare this a public holiday this Sunday, 16th of February. Why is it really necessary to honor the person and the service of Janan Luwum?
First of all, I think you've begun at the tail end, because I thought I was going to look at the importance at the end, but it's all right. Why are we celebrating? Why is it important? Why has government spent all these why has government been spending all the resources, both human and financial, to celebrate this man? He is actually called Saint Janan. He's a Saint Janan because he's one of the recognized saints. He's a martyr. He was made a martyr of the 20th century by the Anglican Church, by the Anglican Communion, which is actually the Church of England in Canterbury. In 1998, the Queen attended the service in Westminster Abbey, and Janan Luwum, Martin Luther King Jr., Marcella were recognized as 20th century martyrs. So, but at the same time, why are we celebrating this man? It is actually after the death of Saint Janan Luwum that the entire world is galvanized. So his death galvanized the whole world, both international and national, and they were all in arms to defeat the dictatorship of Idi Amin. This is a man who was not only a political persecutor, Idi Amin, but a religious persecutor. So that was a milestone, not only in the history of the church, but also in the history of the country, because you have a dictator who comes to power, first of all not elected by people but imposing himself, but at the same time, instead of doing the common good, he ended up persecuting as many people, including the Archbishop. But it is after the death of this Archbishop, Janan Luwum, who was the second African Archbishop of Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and Boga Zaire, who was actually the first Archbishop to die in office after Kuranma in 1556. You can imagine, from 1556 to 1977, that is a big time. This was the first Archbishop to die in office. So his death provoked the entire world, both international and national. And that is why Uganda, where the Archbishop was killed and murdered, has to put in place that day to remember him officially, making it a public holiday. So I think it was out of the wisdom of His Excellency the President, but also before he made it a public holiday, the people in northern Uganda, in the entire Acholi sub-region, Lango, and even West Nile sub-region, were all remembering that day, and they used to go and worship. So the president in 2015 made it a public holiday, which was very crucial. And as you rightly said, we are now, it's now 10 years since that was done. So we are remembering a hero.
Okay. As we remember this hero, the former Archbishop of the Church of Uganda, Burundi, Boga Zaire, let's also talk about his service to humanity that could have also led either to his death, or could have also why we are also celebrating him. What kind of service, what kind of man was he in serving Ugandans and the community that we are in East African?
First of all, St. Janan Luwum began as a humble person, very humble background. Born in 1924 in Muchwini, where we celebrate his life. And then in 1948, he accepted Christ as his personal Savior and Lord. And that was a turning point in his life. And after that time, he had a lot of theological and teacher training exposure. He was a teacher, he was a principal. But when he accepted Christ as his Savior, personal Savior, it changed his life, and that actually gave birth to what he became at a later time. So Janan Luwum was made the bishop of, first of all, he was the provincial secretary of the Church of Uganda. In 1966, Archbishop Erika Sabit made him a provincial secretary. 1969, he becomes the bishop of northern Uganda. And then 1974, he was installed as the Archbishop of Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and Boga Zaire. And then, of course, he dies in 1977. That was only 3 years. Now, you can imagine in a time that was short, 74 to 77, this man was...
Although official accounts indicate an accident.
No, let me first give you what you asked, because you said, what right. Did he do? Because the accident is just is how he died. Those are talking of how he died, but you didn't ask how he died. You asked what did he do?
Let's proceed.
So what he did, first of all, this man has a big story to tell. In just 3 years as an archbishop, in him there was what I may call an unwavering courage. You know, great men, when they die, great men watch catastrophe from the terrace. So if there is war, the president or even a king or an archbishop would go far and he watches people being killed. He is protected. But Archbishop Janan Luwum faced Idi Amin. He faced death. In fact, his wife told him to run away. Let's escape because the situation is becoming worse. Some of his fellow bishops had to run away. But for him, he said, I'm not going. I have to remain with my sheep. I can't run away from my sheep. If it means death, I will die. So what do we learn from him? Courage, unwavering courage. And that means that he faced the situation. He faced Idi Amin. He did not run away like other great men would have done, because others would be protected by security and they would watch catastrophe from the terrace. But for him, he's a man who faced the situation and died for his faith, and that is why he's actually remembered as a martyr, because a martyr is someone who dies for his faith. Secondly, he's a man, from the literature that we have read and those who worked with him closely, he's a man who defended truth at all times. He lived a life of integrity, which is something that is not there in this country. This country, integrity and honesty, as far as we are concerned, are requirements that are in short supply. So he was a man who spoke the truth at all times, but at the same time he promoted self-reliance, and that is why this building the Church of Uganda put up, they named it after St. Janan. It was not accidental It was not accidental. It was named because, first of all, he's the one who conceived the idea, but at the same time, he was a man who promoted self-reliance.
That kind of man who was so courageous, speaking truth to power, if at all that man, Janan Luwum, comes back today, what would he think and say about the current crop of our religious leaders? Are they of the crop that can still stand and say in the midst of death or against all odds, they can still stand and say, hey, Mr. Governor, hey, Mr. President, hey, Honorable Member of Parliament, this, what you're doing is wrong? Even, for example, if I can give an example, take it with the previous court ruling, Supreme Court ruling, can we have kind of religious leaders who can say, hey, Mr. President, let's uphold what the Supreme Court ruled. No explanations, no excuses. Can we still have those?
What is the court ruling you are talking? Can you substantiate that?
What I'm saying is, can we have religious leaders who can stand?
Can you be specific?
Can we have religious leaders who can still stand and speak truth to power?
You are not talking of a specific court ruling.
For example, this recent Supreme Court ruling, the one that was talking about that trial of civilians should be taken back to civilian courts, not in the military courts, like Janan Luwum would still stand and face the dictatorial regime of Idi Amin.
Thank you, Mbide. Now, as you know, the church or the church or the role of a church leader is being a voice of the voiceless. That is actually cardinal role. The church is a custodian of values and a custodian of faith. And whenever there is a situation that is lamenting, it is the religious leader who stands tall and speaks loudly to defend the rights of the people, like Archbishop Janan said. Now, as you rightly asked, if he comes back, what story would he be able to tell?
Would you be proud of these current crop of leaders?
In Uganda, religious leaders who can stand, who actually can speak the truth. They are there, and I can even mention their name. I can't fear to say it. They are archbishops. Bishops. They are priests like me, who don't fear to speak the truth before the public and before the political leader.
Who would still stand and say, even in the midst of death, facing death?
Yes, they are there. The only problem is that this government has not threatened religious leaders. Actually, as the Constitution says of 1995, Article 29 gives freedom of worship and freedom of expression. The government of Uganda currently has actually protected that freedom, and that is why the freedom of worship has been abused by religious leaders. Reason, they have a lot of freedom. Government has given them more freedom and to an extent, but if it was anarchy, if there was political anarchy in this country, I can tell you ably that there are some religious leaders, bishops and clergy who would stand tall like Janan Luwum and speak out and say, this is wrong, enough is enough. I know them. Some of them are my classmates, some of them are my colleagues. So, but of course, having said that, the challenge that we have is that we have few who would actually stand tall to speak the truth. You see, it is one thing to speak the truth like he did, but it is also another thing to point a finger to a politician who is doing wrong. So you see, the issue is that there is fear. Actually, some people fear. Sagala chive kunze mu Luganda. That's tinkwenda kuchindije umuri Nyankore. People are fearing, of course, to speak the truth. But Janan Luwum, as I told you, what we learn more cardinal from him is that at all times he stood for the truth. He was a man of integrity and very humble, by the way. If you don't know, this is a man who was very humble.
Some would say that maybe the gifts...
The current religious situation, as I told you, there is a lot of freedom freedom, and people have been allowed to worship and to do anything they want.
Okay.
But